The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Now, as we start up, you're hearing feedback that I need to get rid of. And I'm going to do that right now by shutting off the speaker. And that way, you'll only hear me speaking one time. Sometimes when people are on a system at home, you run into this problem. And it is that their speaker is making so much noise in the background that you can't hear anything. So I just shut the speaker off. Now we have started this webinar, and I'm playing two roles here. I'm trying to play the part of the discussion leader and at the same time show you what's going on. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about is this screen. You would see normally during a webinar, whatever the presentation is that the presenter wants to give to you. That can be pictures, it can be PowerPoint, it can be drawings, it can be anything, it can be even video, live video. And as you're watching it, you might have occasion to bump this button up here. Watch what happens. Now, the screen shrank because as the presenter, I happen to have a wide scale or wide screen notebook computer. And what that does is it shrinks your picture down to make it look just like what I'm seeing, except you don't have necessarily the same size screen. So all of this stuff up in here is a black area. And if I were to lower this, you'd see it on the bottom as well. But I'm not going to do that because it throws everything off. So let's go back to the full screen. Let's give you some control up here. And let's say that you want to ask a question. So what you do is you come down here and you might say something simple like, how are you? And it's okay to abbreviate. And what you do is you would send that, and the person who is running the program sees that on their screen, and when they can, they'll try to answer you. And what they do is they might say in return, I am fine, or whatever other message that they're trying to send to you. Now, the person that's running the program can send that message to you alone or to everybody. So we'll just send it to you because yours was a personal message. You'll notice that now it says, I am fine. And I'm trying to zero in on that so you can see it a little bit better. And I'll also try to bump this up a bit just so you can see what else is going on. Now let's suppose that you're sitting there and you are a person that has a completely operable system and you want to talk. So I can unmute you, and then if you're using your voice over internet microphone, you would be able to speak to me, and everybody else would hear you. And now you can see that up here you're no longer muted. Now watch again and I'll mute you just so you see how it works. And that's how the organizer controls the meeting. He can open the meeting up so that about 25 people at once can interact and talk, and that's nice if everybody's polite and doesn't have background noise. But otherwise it's really tough because it gets too loud. All right, we've got the basic idea here, and now what we're going to do is show you something that you can do as you're getting ready to leave this webinar. If you want to save the messages, you would pick this, save the messages at the top of the program here. Or if you want to exit early, you could exit out like that, clicking that. But we're not going to do either of those. What we're going to do is assume that the program has come to an end and everything is going to stop. Now before we leave, I want to come back to this screen when you first log in there's some very important information here that you need to understand. If you are using a system where you have your own microphone and loudspeaker, you're okay. But if you didn't and you had to use a landline telephone, what you would do is you would call into that number in the United States. You would put in the access code, which is the second line, and the third line would be the PIN number. Now, the audio PIN allows you to talk on your telephone, and I would mute you and unmute you just as though you were talking over the computer. Works the same way. But if you don't put that PIN number in, you can hear me, but you cannot speak at any point. Here's something that's pretty neat. If we have people from other countries, which we always do, we can put a lot of different phone numbers out here which would show up on their screen up here. So instead of the United States, it might have phone number in Germany or Italy or the Netherlands. And if you happen to live in the Netherlands, what you would do is call that local number, and if you weren't in Amsterdam, it might be long distance in the Netherlands. But from that point that you make that connection in Amsterdam, all the way back to the United States, it is just a local call. And that's really neat, because if you're using a landline, you have to pay for the phone call yourself. To use the webinar, there is no cost. There may be a cost for seminars or lectures or something that a company chooses to do in utilizing this tool. But to connect to and use the webinar, there's no cost to you. All right, let's say that we're all done and we're going to exit the webinar. This is what happens when you do that. Your screen will say the webinar is ended. Right there. I'll pull this back a little bit. And it's saying, okay, pay attention, it's ended, click OK. So you do that, and you're basically done. Now you might get a thank you screen at the end for being on the webinar, or not, depending on how it was structured to begin with. But that's how it goes. And thank you for being with us. We hope you got something of value out of this. Bye-bye.